go. I got something new. Not as exciting as this. I'll tell you that right now. But
hello and welcome to a new season of Survivor Social. We are here for episode 1 of Survivor 49. This is the Survivor podcast where we discuss Survivor with a focus on the social elements of the game. My name is Cara, and today I'm here with Tori, who you might recognize from our pre-show. Tori, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Cara. I'm just so excited to talk 49. I'm really excited for this season. I don't know. I know there's a lot of hype around 50, but I'm trying to really embrace this season and watch it with love the way that I always do. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and tonight we have a special guest with us. We have Gabe from Survivor 47. Gabe, how are you doing? What are your thoughts on the season so far?
There is nowhere else in the world I'd rather be than the Survivor Now podcast with Cara and Tori. So thank you so much for having me on. This is going to be so much fun. And I was pleasantly surprised by the 49 premiere. I think that all of the hype around 50 on the horizon has actually maybe been a good thing for 49. That people have come in with very not low expectations, but no expectations, I think is a better way. Because it's just been so much 50, 50, 50. And it's like, oh, there's this season too. Well, I haven't thought about it, but let's see what they got. And so I think, going into a Survivor season, usually the cast is so scrutinized before the show actually starts with all the pregame stuff that comes out, and people form all these opinions about the cast members and what they want the season to be. And I think that a lot of that weight has actually been lifted off of 49. And it's kind of been more of let's just sit back and enjoy this and not really go in with all these preconceived notions or expectations for the cast. And so I hope they're feeling that as cast members with this premiere coming out. But certainly as a viewer, as an audience member, as an analyst, as a fan, it's been kind of refreshing, honestly, to go in without the weight of a usual Survivor season.
Mm-hmm. I feel like for this, knowing 50 and knowing some spoilers, I don't want to say anything in case people don't know, but I'm trying to not have any of that cloud my judgment when watching or talking about it, because I don't think that's fair to the rest of the people on the season and everything like that. But anyway, before we dig into the episode and get into all of the premiere, make sure to like and subscribe to Survivor Now on YouTube, Spotify, follow us on Instagram, all the places. And as a reminder, we are live right now, and if you have any questions, send them in. We will get to them a little later in the episode. If you have comments, we'll talk about your comments. Send anything in the live chat. So yeah, let's get into the episode. There was a lot of episode. I feel like it was a long episode, and I feel like we were halfway through, and I was like, did we do immunity yet? We're still in the middle of it, So let's talk about the intro sequence, the beginning of everyone getting together, coming off the boats. What'd you guys think of that?
I was personally surprised, and I know that this was in a preview, so I had seen this scene before the episode actually aired, but I was actually surprised that, what is that person's name? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. The person that said that he was an alternate?
Jacob, I think.
Okay, Jacob. Sorry if that's not your name, Jacob. But yeah, I was surprised that he admitted that he was an alternate. I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one. I can't be the only one that was surprised by that, but I don't know if that's going to help him.
Jason.
What'd you say, Gabe?
It's Jason, not Jacob.
Oh, Jason. Okay, sorry, Jason. I obviously didn't even have any kind of recollection, but I'm learning names still. So I don't know. That was one thing that jumped out to me that I thought was actually really surprising.
Yeah, and I think that Survivor as a production is kind of starting to embrace the fandom a bit more, in the sense that we all know that there are alternates, and we all know who the alternates are by the time the show comes out. And I actually think it's kind of neat that they're willing to be a bit more open about that. They could have edited that whole thing out if they wanted to, but they chose to keep it in. That was a very intentional decision. And I think that they're realizing that the magic of this show isn't so much about what we don't know as fans, but almost more about what we do know as fans. And I think they want to embrace that and kind of see where that goes. So I thought Jason saying that he was an alternate was a first. It's never happened before. And actually Sage, who is on the Red Tribe, was the alternate for 47 for our season.
Oh.
So, and I was shocked when I found that out, because I thought for sure she was going to be in the game. I was kind of like, her and Genevieve are like not the same, obviously, but just based off pregame where you can't talk to each other and you're just like staring at people. I thought they were a little similar, because they were both married. They both had rings on. They were both like long hair brunettes that were kind of tall. So I was like, they're kind of similar, but I thought maybe they'll be on different tribes. Just the way she carried herself. She kind of had this sense of like, I belong here. So when I found out she was the alternate, that was very shocking to me. So obviously I have a very soft spot in my heart for Sage, going into this season. Of all my notes that I scribbled, she was in many of my alliances, if she was on my starting tribe. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I think it's a cool thing to embrace. And I also thought it was interesting that, people have been keeping up with a lot of the pregame for this season. MC on what tribe is she on? Red? Yellow? One of them.
I think red.
On the yellow tribe.
Red.
Yellow. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're both on the same tribe. She was the female alternate for this season. So both alternates made it onto the show. And I thought it was interesting that she decided to keep that to herself. I don't know if that's a good decision, a bad decision, or neutral, but it is a decision to make whether or not you reveal that to people. So we kind of got to see two sides of that coin, of Jason being very open and excited about it, and MC maybe thinking that's something I can keep to myself, and whether she wants to use that as information to curry favor with people later in the game, whether she's worried about a potential target it might put on her back, I don't know. But I did find that very interesting.
Yeah, and we've seen alternates do very well when they are on when they get cast on the season, So I feel like automatically, if people out there know that, maybe they could be looking at, Jason a little differently, because they'd be like, oh, maybe he's gonna win now. We saw Rachel do it. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do you guys think that alternates have in their mind that they have to play harder, and that's why we see them sometimes do really well?
I honestly, to be honest, I think they have a pretty distinct advantage going into the game, just because like pre-game, those 5 days you spend at Ponderosa before you go out and play is just like, it's kind of hard because it's 5 full days where you can't talk to anybody and you're kind of just like puttering around Ponderosa, but you can't really enjoy Ponderosa. Like you can't swim in the pool. You can't like, have drinks. You can't like indulge yourself in the buffet. Like you're kind of just going where you're told, sitting when you're told to sit, being quiet, like doing all these medical checks, like going through all this logistical stuff. And it's painfully boring. And I think knowing to expect that and not being this wide-eyed, like, oh my God, I'm here. Like it's happening. Like going in being like, okay, I've done this. I know what it feels like. Let's get to the game. Like I know what to expect. I know what the interviews are going to be like. Oh, I'm not figuring this out as I'm doing it. I'm not freaking out. I think all of that's a pretty big advantage. And if you remember back in 45, when they did their match chat there, when they were on a boat, Bruce from 44, then on 45, he got called back. And I think the same question got brought up of like, isn't it an advantage that he was here before? And he didn't really do anything in Survivor other than pregame and one challenge. And Emily Flippin, in classic Emily Flippin style, was like, well, no, I think it is a pretty big advantage that he's done all this before. And I think she was spot on about that. So yeah, I think alternates, I think they have a leg up, having gone through pregame, having gone through the whole process, the casting process, having gone out there. Like it's just, you're just calmer. You come into it with a bit of a calmer demeanor. And I think you can plan ahead a bit better. And to your point, Tori, I think part of it too is like, I went through all this and I got it taken away from me. So now I'm out here again. So I'm going to die out here if that's what it takes. And I so I'm curious if we'll see that from Jason and MC for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think having that, being able to have that experience and then go and then actually do it, I can definitely see how that would be an advantage for sure. So first looks at the tribe. What are your initial thoughts on the 3 tribes? We have Uli, Keely, and Hina. Any tribe stick out to you? Either of you?
So I think Hina's interesting because they're on my beach. They were on the Tuku beach. That was also our merge beach. So I always kind of key in a little bit more whenever they're on the screen. But I think the we got to see a lot of the dynamics of the Blue Tribe, Keely, Kele, and I think that's very interesting because oftentimes you kind of see these gender splits happen where like the girls pair up with the girls and the guys pair up with the guys, and then somebody falls to the bottom of that first tribal. But we're not really seeing that on that tribe. Like we're seeing Sophie kind of integrate herself with the guys. She's gone up to 2 different guys so far, Jake and Jeremiah. A lot of J's on this season, huh? Jason, Jake, Jeremiah. This is going to be fun
And
to podcast.
S's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and S's. Sage, Sophie, Savannah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we saw her go up to 2 of the guys right away, and she asked Jake to be her number 1, and she asked Jeremiah to be her number 1. And I think that a little bit of that will show itself again later in this podcast episode. But I found that to be pretty interesting that Sophie seems to be moving a lot of the social gears on that tribe. Looking at the Red Tribe, Uli, right? I think they're very interesting because they're kind of seemingly trying to go about like a Vibes Tribe vibe where it's like, okay, we're gonna do yoga and we're gonna be led through breathing practices and all this and that, and you can see that everyone's kind of on board with it except for Savannah's kind of like, this isn't really what I came here to do. And personally, as a viewer, as a fan, I love seeing that, but I'm curious how that's going to disrupt or not disrupt the social workings and strategic workings of that tribe, because people get very comfortable in that. It's like one of the things about being on Survivor is your routine is completely stripped away from you, like in every facet, right? And so people become very desperate for that routine. And it's like, oh, well, we wake up every morning and what's the girl who was leading yoga? I'm forgetting her name. First episode is always tough to remember the names. 18 of them to keep track. But if you Shannon, yes. Like some people get stuck in just like, oh, Shannon's doing yoga every morning. So I wake up and we all go out to the beach and we all do yoga and we do the breathing practices. And this is like my routine now. And that makes me feel very comfortable because everything around me is so uncomfortable. And all it really takes is one person to be like, I don't really like that. I don't want to do that anymore. And like everything goes haywire. It's like, why doesn't Savannah like doing yoga? Why doesn't Savannah want to do breathing practices? Like, should we vote her out because of that? Is she actually right? Should I also not like it? Like, so I think that having somebody on a Vibes tribe that is kind of going against the grain can lead to very interesting conflict. And I'm curious to see when and if that's going to rear its head.
Yeah, all such good points. It's funny. On Tyson's podcast, The Pod Has Spoken, he's talked a little bit, actually kind of a lot, about how like when you're out there and someone wants to do something, it doesn't matter how silly or stupid you think it is. He's like, you do it. He's like, somebody wants to like whatever, pray before bed, you go for it and you just like suck it up because you don't want to be that person that sticks out. So I do wonder if Savannah is going to start sticking out for that reason, or if it's just going to be kind of like a one-time thought and like she's just going to kind of like not come back to it. I don't know, but sure. I thought I kind of also maybe had that thought a little bit, but I also saw a really funny tweet, and I related to this because this was something that I also personally thought. It said something like, I bet Survivor production is so upset or like stunned that the tribe that they engineered to be the disaster tribe like crushed the challenges, which was Yellow. And I said on our draft podcast that I thought that Yellow was for sure going to lose first immunity. Yellow tribe, I'm so sorry. I'm really doing things wrong this season so far. They crush it. I mean, I love that tribe and they're really doing well. So kudos to them.
They are. This is the first time we've seen a Yellow tribe kind of dominate the premiere.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So true.
And now we have a new disaster tribe emerging, potentially.
Yeah.
We'll get to it, I guess.
I thought that was going to be like the strongest tribe.
Yeah, and being a part of a disaster tribe it's always funny. And like 47, we didn't have one. We were like very balanced. It was Red went to tribal twice, we went to tribal once, and Yellow went to tribal twice. So like we didn't have a tribe swap. Like that's how balanced everything was for the pre-merge in 47. And then, we ended up having to go to like a de facto tribal with all of our former Tukus when Tiana went home. So like it was a very even playing field. So we kind of, stood out as being one of the few new era seasons that didn't have a disaster tribe. But if you can find a way to insulate yourself within a disaster tribe, I think it's kind of the best place to be in any given new era pre-merge, because like you're going to be going to tribal a lot. You're going to get a lot of tribal council experience, which is super important going into the merge. Because you don't want the first time you go to tribal council to be when everybody's on the same beach. Like you don't want to not know what it's like to scramble for your life when there's 13 people on the beach and somebody's been doing it for the past 3 or 4 days or 3 or 4 rounds. So I look at this looming disaster tribe. Potentially, we don't know. It could be, it couldn't be, but it always seems that first tribe that goes to tribal sets themselves up to go at least a few more times. But I think that Sophie is just finding herself in a really good place, and I already mentioned her once. But I think that she's in a place right now where if they keep going to tribal, she's going to be somebody that's going to benefit from that. Like, I don't think her name is going to get thrown out just based off of this first episode, because she has Jake that is going to back her up, seemingly. She has Jeremiah that's going to back her up, seemingly. And Annie's name is already getting thrown around. It didn't seem like that had a whole lot of weight to it, but like people are comfortable throwing Annie's name out there, whether it's a decoy or not. That's been made clear. So I'm very curious to see how Blue develops if they have to go to tribal again. Because now like these relationships are going to get a little tested, and that'll be very fun to see. But admittedly, I'm not a big fan as a viewer of disaster tribes, because then one tribe takes up all the airtime for the first like month and a half of the show. Like I want to see everybody get airtime. I want to see the tribe dynamics of everybody play out. So while I am intrigued probably more so of the Blue tribe than any of the tribes right now, I do want to see other people go to tribal. Disaster tribes are bad for viewing, in my opinion.
I agree too. I think that's one of the reasons why 47 was such a good season, because we got to see everyone so evenly in that pre-merge part of the game. And like by the time it merged, like we knew everyone. It was exciting, and there was a lot of that was great that it wasn't a disaster tribe on that one. But yeah, so we have that intro. They go into the reward challenge, and honestly, one of the main things that stuck out for me in this reward challenge was that people were doing it in jeans. I saw the jeans and I was like, I could not imagine being on this beach in jeans doing this challenge. That seems like the worst case scenario.
Awful. Yeah. I was surprised by that too. I know I was at like a watch party and people were definitely talking about that. They're like, why are they wearing jeans? And then the discussion came up of like, and Gabe, you can probably speak on this, but the discussion came up, like people were talking about how do they decide what everybody wears on Survivor? Like how did they land on jeans?
Jeans are insane. Like I could not imagine going to Fiji in jeans, playing Survivor or not. Like just hanging out on the beach in jeans is crazy. So I mean, it's like you just like they say, hey, like here's your tribe color, and here's like the kind of clothes we want you to get, not like fashion wise, but like we need this many shirts, we need this many pants, we need this many whatever. And so I mean, I don't know, maybe they got told to bring jeans out. That's not outside the realm of possibility, but like for me at least, I would have had to explicitly be told pack jeans for me to bring that. Like I would have sent every kind of article of clothing under the sun before I sent a single thread of denim to Fiji. Yeah. So even the fact that we had multiple people, it's crazy. It's nuts.
Because they were tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so when they do the challenges, I assume this is intentional. Maybe it's just coincidental. I don't know. But you're always doing the challenges like at noon. So it's like when the sun is at the peak of hotness and like in your face, and to be, sprinting through the sand and the water and like carrying things when the sun is just beating down on you. And Jeff even talked about like a couple days before the season came out of like how hot 49 was. Like 49 was specifically very, very hot. Like, I don't know how Jake doesn't have a heart attack out there. It's crazy. It's insane to me.
It is crazy. We have Ollie saying no jeans on Survivor, and then we
Yes.
have Zans saying denim is back. So
Venom can be back. I don't disagree with that. Just not on Survivor.
not in Fiji. No.
Not in Fiji.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be like the last thing I would think to pack for Survivor ever.
For sure.
100%.
Ever.
That was just crazy. Especially, no, just jeans in general. I was gonna say tight jeans, but even baggy jeans, I feel like then they would get weighed down the second they get even a little bit wet. And no.
And they're not getting dry again either. If you get them wet,
Yeah.
they're going to be wet for the entire time that you're out there.
Yeah. No, thank you. But we see that yellow wins the tribe supplies, and then red and blue have to try again. They have to pick one person from each of their tribes to go and compete in a face-off challenge. And so they pick Rizzo and Alex. They both go. And before they go, Rizzo says, if it's a puzzle, we're cooked going into it. And then they go and he sees that it's a puzzle. I feel like this has been like a controversial topic about the puzzle and how Rizzo handled the puzzle. Gabe, what do you think about this? If you were there with him and he was looking at your puzzle trying to figure it out.
As a viewer, I loved it. I was like, dude,
Yeah.
how do we know the limits and rules are there if we don't push them? If it was me, I like to think, and this is me, hindsight 2020, I get the perspective of being a viewer and not being there. I like to think if I saw him doing that, I would have had the wherewithal to walk over and like take apart my puzzle, So like as a viewer, I thought it was awesome. I was like, yeah, this is fun. Like play hard, ask for forgiveness, don't ask for permission. But if that was me, like, yeah, I'd be pissed off, but I would also be thinking like, okay, how can I stop him? And Alex's effort to stop him was very valiant of, I'm just going to lay on the puzzle, but it's like, you got to get up eventually, bro. I mean, like you can't stay there forever. So no, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was cool, man. Like, yeah, bend the rules, break the rules, do whatever you can to go win.
Yeah. And I guess it's kind of hard. You can't really take it apart because it is also your map. So I guess
True, that's a good point.
You got to weigh out the options. What do you think, Tori? What would you have done?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm sure that like the most I would do is probably realistically like what Alex did. But I like to think, and poor Alex, like he was digging for a while. He could not find his thing.
Yeah.
But I like to think that if I realized that I was already having trouble finding it with the map, I might as well just take it apart and start digging, because like I'm going to get just as tired digging the way that I am. So that's the only thing I thought. But obviously, as a viewer, you see things that you don't necessarily think about on the beach. And I don't know for sure that I would actually realistically do that. So, yeah, I mean, hey, I'm with Gabe. Like, I loved it as a viewer on Rizzo's end. Like, I thought it was fun. It was entertaining. And you're right. Ask for forgiveness later. Like, who knows if this is going to end up putting, like, a little bit of a strain on their relationship later once they meet up, if they meet up, but we'll see.
Yeah, and a great tip that my friend Jake O'Kane from 45 put out on Twitter was, if you're on Survivor, so anybody watching who's trying to be on Survivor or knows they're going out to play Survivor, anything like that, if you have a digging in the sand challenge, always dig deep. Like, it's better to dig like 2 feet deep, 3 feet deep in one spot than do what Alex did, which is just like dig wide, because whatever they bury, they're always going to bury it like a good 2.5, 3 feet deep. And you're not going to get to it or even close to it if you just dig a wide circle. And that's kind of what Alex was doing. And I'm assuming, just from what I saw on TV, that that's why he had so much trouble, is because he wasn't going deep enough. So he wasn't finding anything. So it's like, even if you're in the wrong spot, but you dig deep enough, no pun intended, you got to dig deep.
Yeah.
Like, you might find like a little piece of it just like sticking out. And then, like, okay, I'm like a little too far to like the right. So let me like dig in and like to the left, but you're never going to find it unless you go deep enough. So I think that was Alex's fatal flaw watching from a distance, was digging wide, not deep. Go deep. Like 3 feet to go before you find whatever you're looking for.
I'll keep that one in mind.
Yeah,
Going
definitely.
on Survivor, Tori? Did you just make an announcement?
We hope so.
And he had such a big lead too. I feel like that was probably getting to him at some point too, that he had this lead, he can't find it. And then we see Rizzo figure out the puzzle and then, you know, win and finds the wheel. So yeah, so he wins. The blue officially has no supplies, nothing going into this next part. And then we have a lot of like tribe conversations that we see. We see a lot of the blue tribe, the Keeley tribe, I don't know, Keeley tribe. I don't know.
We'll go with Keeley. We'll
Yeah,
stick with
Keeley.
Keeley for this part.
Okay. I feel like there was a lot happening there with, we kind of mentioned it with Sophie, and then we see the bromance with Alex and Jake. That was a big part of that tribe. Jake is so interesting to me as a person. I feel like there's so much with him that every time he came on screen, he was saying something new that was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Like, he wants to be the shoe bandit. He, like, his job is interesting. He has a baby on the way that's about to be born, and he's on Survivor. He was a standout for me on that tribe. Does anyone else feel like that?
I agree, and I thought it was fun to watch, but I question the validity of the gameplay aspect of it. Like, he pretty much said in episode 1 every reason that he should win Survivor. Like, my dad's going blind and he's never going to be able to watch Survivor again. I have a baby that's on the way, you know. I already know who my number 1 is. It's a bromance with the guy who I've barely talked to. So it's like, it's all these things of like things that you probably shouldn't just be saying like to one person, much less like everybody in the game out at one point or another. So I found him to be very, very interesting. I think he's going to be a very polarizing player, but I think a lot of people, when like, you know, you get a little bit deeper in the game and you start thinking about who I want to take deep into this game or who's going to be more predictable versus more unpredictable. I think all of that is not helping him get further in the game. Like, I don't want to take the expecting father with an ailing father of his own, like to the end. Of course, I don't want to do that. And, you know, that's just all the things on the surface. I think when you dig a little bit deeper, it's like this guy will say anything at any moment. And I want to be playing with people who I can predict every single move they're going to make. Like, I don't want my allies to do anything that will ever surprise me. And this dude is clearly full of surprises. He's made that very clear. So I think, again, as a viewer, great TV. Just like Cara said, every time he said anything pretty much, I was like, interesting. But as a player, like, red flags everywhere, like as many red flags as you could possibly have in a player, just because it's so unpredictable. It's like, you know, like the dude has a story for everything, and he's just calling out who his big allies are on day one. And it's like, I don't think you realize how unsettling that is for people who want to work with you, because eventually you're going to say something that people aren't like, oh, that's interesting. They're going to be like, why the hell did you say that? Like, you weren't supposed to tell anybody that. And you're telling people who we're not working with about these things. So I am kind of waiting. He strikes me as a bit of a ticking time bomb, to be honest, just as a player. As a person, he seems like he's a great time, though. So, Jake, I cannot wait to watch more of you on TV.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love him as a viewer for sure. But everything you said, Gabe, is spot on. I definitely think that some of these things, like, it's only a matter of time. I also just think like the power couple idea just never really works. And I think that if the rest of the tribe gets smart, like if they have to go back to tribal and maybe they're thinking we need to split up this duo, I think that out of him and Alex would be the first voted out just because of all the things that he's been saying.
What makes you think Alex could be potentially on the chopping block?
You know, with Alex, I think that's a good question. I think that maybe they like sniff out that he's trying to like make relationships. Obviously, Annie wouldn't. I don't know. This is tough because what I was originally going to say is that people might sniff out that he's making relationships with like Annie on the side, and they're like, "Oh, he's gaming too hard," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're probably like, he's like a nice, personable, strong guy that we might not want to take in the merge anyway. That's, I guess, what comes to mind first. So if that were to happen, it would obviously have to be like Jake and Sophie sort of like, and Jeremiah leading the charge on that, and Annie would be blindsided. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Who would go first? I feel like Jake could maybe go first over Alex because Alex has that little connection with Annie, and I think that could potentially be something. And we saw in the preview, or not in the preview, in the episode, that Annie goes to Sophie and they talk about like the bigger threats. So I feel like they could figure out. Actually, you know what? No, now that I'm talking about it, I feel like Alex probably would be the one to go. I feel like keeping around Jake because he is so like unpredictable and a little like, he's just gonna say random stuff or whatever, is better to keep around than someone maybe you don't know where exactly he is at.
And that makes you a great shield too, is that like at any moment you can kind of say, hey, let's get rid of Jake. We don't know what the hell this dude's doing, you know? Yeah. So that is a good reason to keep somebody around. I find on these 6-person tribe formats that usually within the first couple days, a very strong foursome forms, and the 2 people on the bottom are very aware that those are the 2 on the bottom. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just stick with the status quo and Annie ends up leaving, because it seems like the strong 4 right now are the 3 guys and Sophie.
Yeah.
And it, that showed itself in this episode. And again, I think Annie was made to look like she was more in trouble than she actually was, just to make it a better edit. But I wouldn't count out Annie going home next if they end up going back to tribal, just because it's just so safe. It's like, we have this foursome. We all voted together one time. We saved one person that was on the bottom in exchange for the other person that was on the bottom. Let's just take out the other person that's on the bottom, and then it's just us, and we can work together and not go to tribal again. And that's what was trying to happen on Tuku. Like it was supposed to be Sue and Caroline were on the bottom, and it was the 3 guys, me, TK, Kyle, and then Tiana. And like that is what the working foursome was going into our first tribal council. And that was something that I was thinking about before I even got out there, was this, that format I just talked about of like 4 people are going to come together, and the 2 people on the bottom are going to know they're on the bottom, and they're just going to hope and pray that they don't go to tribal. And if they do, they're not the one of 2 people that gets picked off. And so my philosophy was like, well, if those 2 people become identified pretty early on, like, let me go to them and say like, hey, you guys are on the bottom, but you don't have to be. Like, instead of 4 versus 2, I'll come with you guys and we can do 3 versus 3. And all we need to do is pull one of them to our side. And next thing you know, like, we go from being on the bottom to we make all the decisions on the tribe. And thankfully for us, that's exactly how it worked out after TK went home. So I would like to see somebody on this blue tribe kind of take that route and be like, well, let's shake things up a little bit. Like, why does Annie have to go home? Just because, we've all kind of agreed that she's not really in the foursome as much as us 4 are. Like, I love to see people kind of scheme their way through the pregame, because it is so easy to do that. It's so easy to be like, you know what? We have 2 people who kind of look like they're weak and they're not great at challenges. And if we have to go to tribal, they're going to get voted out. And hopefully we don't have to go to tribal again. Like, done, dusted, and we move on. But the pregame is like a place where you can have a lot of fun, and where people are very malleable, and, people are kind of just looking for someone to lead the way forward. And maybe you can find a path that hasn't been forged yet. So if they do end up being a disaster tribe, if they do go back to tribal, I'd like to see something more interesting happen. And maybe that's taking out Alex. I mean, you guys are saying Alex. I would be shocked if that happened. I'll be honest. I would be shocked if Alex went home, but I would be so excited by it. Not for any reason about Alex, just because I think it would be such an unpredictable move to make, and what gears would have to turn for that to happen would be so much fun to watch. So like, that's kind of my hope for this blue tribe. If we see him go to tribal again, is do something that people aren't seeing coming.
No, for sure. I would definitely agree with that. And I do think, like, I still am going to stand by that if it's one of the guys, I'm going to predict that it would be Jake over Alex. Sure. But I do love to see things shaken up, because I do think, while I love, so many of these new era seasons, I do think that the 6-person tribe is getting a little old for the reasons that you just said, which is that we see kind of like the same format often, which is 4 people coming together, 2 people on the bottom. You kind of take those 2 people out if you go to tribal a couple of times, and then you kind of see how things shake up after that. And I just think I would like to see us go back to a 2-tribe format. I don't think that that's happening anytime soon. I think that I think we all know that it's not happening for 50 because we've seen like maybe some of the challenge setups and things like that, but who knows? I don't know. I would just love to see them go back to that at some point.
And we see that same like 4-person like coming to get the 4 people coming together on the Uli tribe with Savannah, Shannon, Nate, and Rizzo. They kind of like talk about them being a potential 4 on that tribe. So I feel like it is like a thing people go in wanting to do because it does make the most sense.
Yeah.
But going back to like the other tribe, I could see like a world where Sophie and Jeremiah and Annie come together at this next one and be like, why would we not just work together? And I feel like you also make, not all the time, but I feel like a lot of the time you make your strongest bonds on your starting tribe. And I feel like that could be a way to make a strong bond going into swap or merge or whatever comes next for them, you know? So.
Yeah. And like that 4-person format, exactly to your point, it is like a very smart, safe thing to do, you know, and it's an easy way to push yourself through the pre-merge phase of the game, which is why I don't blame the players for doing it. Like, I think that like, yeah, like you should be doing that. And, you know, I chose not to do that for my own reasons. And thankfully it worked out well for me, but it very easily could have not. Like there's absolutely a world where people on Tuku were like, Gabe's scheming and it looks like he's kind of breaking away from the foursome that we have. Like, what if we just get Gabe out? And Sue and Caroline are like, well, hey, you're throwing someone's name out that's not us. Like, okay, let's get him out. Like, I could have blown up in my face very easily, and it didn't. So like, I don't blame the players at all. And I agree with Tori that I think that's a production thing. I think that if they want to break the monotony and the pattern that we're seeing all these tribes kind of go through, regardless of who you're putting on these tribes, like you just go back to 2 big tribes of 9 people each, if you stick with 18 people per cast. And I thought it was cool when you would kind of be surprised when a season would start and you would get 3 tribes. And it was like, oh, we're doing something a little different. Okay, that's cool. But now, because we do it every season, like it's not as special as it used to be. Like when Cagayan came out and it was 3 tribes, it was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Let's see how this works. But now that it's every time, it's like, I kind of miss what used to be the pattern. I miss what used to be the norm. And everybody would be excited by it. I show me one person out there that would, oh, we're going back to 2 tribes. Like not one person in the world would react like that. Everybody would be like, oh, let's see what this is. This is cool. So I don't know why they're so beholden to the 3-tribe format of 6 people. I don't get it. We know that there's going to be 24 people on 50, right? 24. Yeah. So at least we'll get 8 people per tribe. Maybe that'll shake things up a little bit, and I think it will. But yeah, I don't know what it is about this format that they love so much that they won't break from it once. But it is what it is, and we have it for now. So, you know, we're getting some more of the same in 49, but it's been fun.
Yeah, or at least start with 2, and then if you want 3 so bad, just swap to 3. You know.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
why not?
Yeah, I agree.
So I want to talk about the Hina tribe a little bit, the yellow tribe.
Sure.
And Steven, I feel like Steven was one that we saw a lot on that tribe. And, you know, we saw him go up to a lot of different people and say, like, I like you, like, I want to work with you. And then we saw him getting a little paranoid about, are other people making alliances? Are they going behind my back saying it's me? And I feel like that's a very real fear out there. Are people making alliances behind my back and I'm going to be the first one out? What is that like, Gabe, when you're there? Is that like something that everyone's feeling? Do you feel like that?
So yes and no. I think that like that's a fear you have from like the moment like you start moving through casting. Like before you're even on the show, you're like, I'm gonna get out there and I'm not gonna be in an alliance and everyone's gonna lie to me and I'm gonna be the first person voted out. Like I think that's a very human response. But I think that at least for me, like Sue and Caroline were just like so on the bottom to start. Like it wasn't even close. It was like, because like me, not so much me, but I kind of played it up a little bit. But like TK and Tiana were like big time athletes, like they played sports their whole lives and they really bonded over that. And like Kyle was like a classic like dude. Like he loved working with his hands and he loved like playing sports and like wrestling and stuff like that. And so that was something that, is true for me. Maybe I'm not as much of an athlete as TK and Tiana were, and maybe I'm not as much of like an outdoorsy guy as Kyle was, but I was able to play that up and kind of fit into it, and Sue was like the oldest person on the cast and, is a super badass pilot and, just this awesome person, but we didn't know any of that in those first few days. And Caroline was like this kind of more nerdy, like analytical person. And, those two didn't really fit in very well with the four of us. And so I never felt like that because it was just like so obvious that those two were on the bottom. And I like everybody was it was something that you couldn't hide. Like people couldn't even lie about it and be like, well, no, maybe I do want to work with them and we're going to vote Gabe out. Like there wasn't even like a lie of that going around just because it was so clear just on a social level. And like something you don't see a whole lot of is like in the downtime when like you're not at a challenge, when like you're not scrambling to go to tribal, like the social dynamics that have nothing to really do with the game affect so much of the game. Like if there's a conversation going on and somebody walks up and they don't really have anything to contribute to what you're talking about, whether it's talking about, your favorite sports team or whether it's talking about like, the clubs you were in high school or like whatever it may be. And they kind of buzzkill everything just by being there, not because of who they are, but just because they can't really relate to you. Like those divides start to naturally form. And I always on Tuku were breaking onto the right side of those divides. But if you're somebody like Steven, maybe we don't see it in the episode, but maybe he's feeling like he's not breaking onto the right side of those divides. Maybe Steven feels like I'm walking up to conversations that are very lively. And when I start saying things, they kind of die down a little bit, or, maybe I'm seeing people invite other folks to go do things. You want to go in the water? You want to go to the water well? Let's go get firewood together. Maybe Steven's not being invited to go do those things with people, and we're just not seeing that because a lot of what we did see was him, exactly like you said, Cara, being very social and talking to a lot of different people and forming bonds with a lot of people. So I was a little surprised when I heard him have that anxiety. And I think maybe there's some stuff we're not seeing. Maybe Steven is being excluded from things that we're not seeing, or maybe just isn't really hitting the social and I don't want to say like intimate, but just like bonding notes that he's seeing other people hit. That's kind of my assumption from what I'm watching. But like Tori, if you were out there playing Survivor, put yourself in that mode, be on the island. And like, do you think that you're somebody that would have that fear creep into your mind of like, all it takes is to see people walk away and now I'm anxious? Or do you think you would be able to kind of power through that?
It would always, I think, be in the back of my mind, like just because we see it so often. And I would be a fool to think like, oh, I'm so locked in with these people and they've got nothing else going on. Like
Sure.
you always kind of have to like, I feel like I would always have to just sort of like think, okay, like what's this like B scenario that could be happening? So, however, I do feel like you can't let the paranoia show. And so I would do my best to just act like normal and casual and like it's not bothering me. Like I feel like when we see people act paranoid and when people start to realize like, whoa, they're playing super scared, it kind of ends up like really hurting them to the point where they get voted out. I think we saw that was it season 43 with Lindsay? I don't know. That's like a really sort of like random example here, but
Sure.
She was in like a strong alliance with her tribe and the tribe itself was very strong. And then she started to get super paranoid and her tribe mates were like, we don't want to work with somebody that's not going to trust us. So they ended up voting her out. So I don't know. I just feel like I would do my best to not let it show. whether I would like act on it to the point of like trying to make like a side alliance, I don't know if I'm that crafty. I like to think that I am, but maybe I'll try to do something fancy too.
Sure.
Yeah. As you were saying that, Gabe, it reminded me of Andy and how the beginning of the game was for him with like, you know, kind of being paranoid and like,
Yeah.
you know, with the coconut and like they're cheering for someone else, but not for me. And that's kind of the vibe that it's kind of giving now at like hearing you say that. So hopefully, and I mean, it worked out for Andy. He
Worked out
made
great
it
for
through
you.
that round. Yeah. So, you know, sometimes I guess it's not the worst thing, but it worked out. So hopefully it works out for Steven as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
let's
and
get in, oh, sorry, go ahead.
but just a quick note I was going to make is that you know, he has the hearing aids, and I think that is actually kind of a benefit, especially early in the game, because it gives you, because I'm sure like he's very comfortable with it. He's had it for, you know, it seems like a very long portion of his life. He talks about it all the time, I'm sure, because people are curious about it. But it's kind of like an easy thing to talk about that comes off as being very vulnerable, you know? And it's a good way to be like, hey guys, like I'm cool, you know, like you don't have to tiptoe around it. Like, yeah, I got some hearing aids. It's whatever. This is the story. You know, I'm going to crack some jokes about it. Like, it's a good way to kind of just have people like roll their shoulders back a little bit, you know, like, okay, Steven's cool. Like I can bring up things that maybe some other people would be uncomfortable to talk about, but like Steven doesn't care. Like, you know, he's talking about it, whatever. Like, that's cool. So I think I could actually see that break good for Steven in these first couple days on the show. It's just like, hey, I can be vulnerable about something that I'm actually very comfortable with. And I think that resonates with people and is a good way to build connections. So seeing him do that very early on, I thought that was a great move by Steven, whether he did it because it's just who he is or he was doing it as a game move. I really liked that.
I agree. Let's talk about the Muni challenge and get into that. I liked this challenge. I like when they run through into like the forest, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
What is it called? The jungle? I don't know. I like when they do that. I thought this was a fun challenge. They got all muddy, which, you know, is a Survivor thing. So I think that's fun I'm sure it's probably not fun, but I don't know. It's Survivor.
It sucks.
What?
It sucks.
Yeah.
It's the worst
It's
part
like
of the
a
whole
rite
thing.
of passage, though. It feels like,
Yeah.
like you have to do your first challenge on Survivor or something.
Yeah.
You have to get muddy.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that really didn't even have to do with the challenge that stuck out to me was when Nicole drank the water and then spit it on Jeremiah to clear the mud out of his eyes. Tori, if you were there and that happened to you, how would you feel?
I would be stunned. I think, didn't Jeremiah say like, that's a first? I think I would honestly be speechless. I'd be like, okay, I mean, thanks for getting the mud out of my face, but what? Yeah, no, that was so funny. Yeah, I don't know. One thing I also said when you were mentioning that they were like running through the jungle, I said to my husband, I was like, this kind of reminds me of like an old Survivor challenge. Like I was thinking back to even like Panama, where like the first challenge they'd like run through the jungle and like find something and bring it back or whatever. I also love when they're like running through things for some reason. I don't really know why.
No,
it's like a change of scenery. It's different.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's not just on a beach, like, you know, or like on a patch of dirt. No, I thought it was actually very fun for a challenge. I thought it was a little different. I liked the rope thing that they had to crawl through. The part at the end where they have the ball that they have to move like along that. So we did that on 47. And I was in that middle position that Nicole was in. So like that's like I was in the middle and then Kyle and TK were on each side of me. And like it's a really tough spot to be in just because everybody's so hyped up on adrenaline and like the stakes are so high and everybody wants to just shout what's in their brain. And you kind of have to be the person to be like, everybody please shut up. And like, we're going to do this as like one, like you have to move through that challenge as like almost like a hive mind, for lack of a better term. Like everybody needs to be moving with the same purpose. And it's a really, really hard challenge. And so when I was doing it, I kind of didn't care if we lost because I wanted to go to tribal, because me and Sue really wanted to get TK out, and I was like excited to do that. And I was also just excited to go to tribal. Like, so I was like, if we win, great. If we lose, like, let's make this thing happen. Like, let's pull off a blindside. This will be fun. So when we were doing it though, like it's like it was really, really tough. So I have a lot of sympathy for Nicole being in that very tough spot of like having to command people that you don't really know, that don't really trust you either. Like that's a big part, that like you've known these people for 2 days and you're trusting them with your chance at $1 million to be in this very important spot. And it's like, I don't know. It's a very, very tough spot to be in. But the challenge as a whole, I thought was great. I love the run into the jungle. I love the rope course. Obviously, you got to do the mud because it's part of Survivor. And so that the mud that they use, it's not even like real mud. Like they make that themselves because it's really sticky. So the point of it is that it's supposed to like stick to you, so you get that look that they're going for, and you can like peel it off like paint almost. It's really crazy.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it sucks to go through. It's super uncomfortable. It gets in your eyes, and like
Ugh.
with like normal mud, you can just like, oh, and now my eyes are clear. But with whatever this stuff is, and like it is mud, they just like add some stuff to it. Like it sticks to your eyelids. So like every time you blink, like it cracks off into your eyes, and that's why like it's such a
No.
problem. So while it was crazy to watch Nicole like squirt water into Jeremiah's eyes, like I do get it. I kind of wish somebody did that for me when I was out there, because like it's unbearable. It's so unbearable. But no, I thought it was fun. And it was heartbreaking to watch my fellow Blue Tribe lose.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was tough for sure. I think I wonder if we're gonna see in all of the future mud challenges. I wonder if we're gonna see more spitting water in people's eyes. To get
There's a new meta.
the
There's a
fake
new
mud eye.
Survivor meta.
Yeah, I wonder if it started a trend there. But yeah, one thing I will say is that if I'm like part of that challenge, that last part of the challenge, it looks very hard. Like I have no doubt that it's so hard, but it's also like not a skill set that like anybody really has going in. So I feel like if I'm that last person, I'm like trying to like maybe put that idea in people's minds if we lose. Like, hey, it's not like I lost a puzzle after I said I'm so good at puzzles or something like that.
Yeah.
Or it's not like I totally like bombed the physical part of the challenge or something. So if I'm Nicole, I'm trying to plead my case as like I'm actually not the weakest person on this tribe. Like yes, I was a part of losing that last part of the challenge, but that could have literally been anyone,
No, that's a great shout. I didn't even think about that, but that's a great point of being like, look, guys, anybody would have done bad there. Let's be honest, kind of. Yeah, that's a good way to sell it.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I feel like obviously like it's the first tribal you're going to, like you're going to look for any reason to vote out someone that's not you. So I feel like that's the easiest thing to default to, but like I feel like that's not fair. Like you said, it literally could be anyone that was in that position and that happens to. So, But ultimately the red tribe and the yellow tribe, not even going to attempt the names, they win, and the blue is going to tribal. So, we go back to their camps, and we see that they come up with a plan to vote for Nicole, but then tell Nicole that it's Annie, and then tell Annie that the vote's Nicole and that her name is out there. What did you think of this plan that they had to basically have two names, and then they really could decide where they want to go, that core, if they want to do Annie, if they want to do Nicole?
Gabe, what do you think? I want to hear your thoughts.
I think this kind of goes back to what we were talking about how these 6-person tribes always kind of shake out. And it was like, these are the two people on the bottom. One of them's going home. The other one's going to be the decoy. So I kind of foresaw that. I'm curious because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I missed this because I was, like you were too, Cara. I was at a watch party, so there were definitely some parts of this that I missed. But I don't feel like Nicole was really like pushing a name out there, and I would have been curious to see if she was, because like to know that you're in like a hot seat spot of like, I was on the puzzle for the marooning challenge and we didn't win that. And then I was in like the caller spot for the immunity challenge and we didn't win that. then now you're like kind of in this place where like you really shouldn't be trusting people, you know, like you should know that there's a very big chance that it's going to be you tonight. And so for people to go up to you and just be like, hey, I think it's going to be Annie tonight, and just to be like, cool. And I'm not saying that happened. I'd be kind of shocked if that happened. But I would have liked to see Nicole kind of like take charge a little bit, you know, and be like, look, if I feel like I'm in the hot seat, like, let me try to create some chaos here and like throw out names and make other people paranoid that aren't one of the two people on the bottom. Like, I think that, and I wish that I took this advice when I was out there, when I was on the hot seat before I went home. But just like start making the people that you feel are calling the shots feel uncomfortable, you know, and try to get them to expose like some of the insecurities that they might have. So like if Nicole came out and was like, we should vote Jake out, you know, who clearly is somebody who's like taking an alpha position on this tribe, and that gets back to Jake, I have no doubt he's going to start freaking out. And he's going to be like, well, are you voting for me? And people are like, no, dude, it's cool. Well, are you going to vote for me? Like, because if you are, then we need to do something about that. And then all of a sudden you can be like, Jake's freaking out, guys. We can't trust him, you know? And I'm just using Jake as a placeholder. It could be anybody. So I kind of wish that we had seen Nicole do a little bit of that and like cause a little bit of chaos and like make those people who have your fate in their hands feel uncomfortable. And I think that's the best way to find yourself out of the position that Nicole was in, because it's just like, oh, please don't let it be me. Please don't let it be me. And people come up and they're like, hey, it's not you. Oh, thank God. Okay, it's not me. You know, it's somebody else. Like, yes, thank you for telling me that. And we're going to vote that person out. Like, that never works. It never, ever, 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 ever works. And so I would have liked to see Nicole kind of be a bit more of an agent of chaos, knowing that she was on the hot seat, or at least like play your shot in the dark. You know, like,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, like we saw all the way up until Tribal. She turned around and looked at Alex and was like, am I good? And Alex was like, yeah, you're good. So clearly she felt uncomfortable. And I think she was just kind of taking the route of like, I'm just going to trust what people are telling me. But it's like, you're a survivor and you're on the hot seat. Like, that's the last thing you should be doing. Like, you should be doing anything to throw wrenches in people's plans. And I think she went with a bit more of a complacent route, which I don't see a lot of evidence of that working a whole lot. So I would have liked to see her cause a little bit more chaos. But for everybody else, like, yeah, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They had somebody they wanted to vote out. They voted them out while telling them that it wasn't going to be them, to keep them from playing the shot in the dark or any advantage or idol they had. So for everybody else, like, well played. You did everything you set out to do, and you did it in as clean of a way as possible and as efficient of a way as possible. But for Nicole, it's like, if you feel that heat, like, set everything on fire, embrace the heat. Don't try and trust that people are going to cool it off for you. Like, set the whole beach on fire if you're going to go out hot. That's kind of my philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, we did hear Nicole say, like, if she feels like anything sketchy is going on, she is going to play her shot in the dark. And we heard her talk a lot about her trying to figure out if people are telling the truth when they talk to her. So I feel like this also kind of is like a credit to the rest of the people on the tribe, that they made her feel so good.
Yeah.
That she, you know, she felt so good that she didn't need to play it. She thought about it. She didn't play it. And I feel like that is a credit to them for making someone feel so good about a plan. And yeah, I feel like that's good on them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think they did everything that they were supposed to do. And like, even Jake had a good moment where I think he was talking to Alex. It might have been Jeremiah. It was one of the guys where he was like, you know, if you walk past her, like, give her a fist bump, you know. And it is like small things like that kind of are just like, okay, like, we're cool. Like, they're not avoiding me, you know. That's the easiest way to set somebody off, is to just like avoid them or stop talking when they walk up. Like, so I thought that was very savvy by Jake to just have the awareness of like, these are things we can do to kind of just, you know, again, let her roll her shoulders back and just be like, it's cool. I'm in on the plan. I'm in the core group. Like, everything's fine. So I thought that was very good by Jake. And I thought I guess 5 people that voted for her did exactly what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think you all make fire points. I think to Gabe, your original point of like, I would have loved to see Nicole gaming harder. I think even before they lost immunity, I mean, I know they don't show everything, so like, she could have been doing a lot more than what we saw, but like, we didn't see her really like trying to form a connection. And if I'm Nicole, or if I'm on Survivor just in general, I want to think that I have the self-awareness to know, like, if I'm one of the two that's not in the 4. And
Yeah.
and I think that it was pretty clear on that tribe. Like, we saw the bromance. We kind of saw Sophie, like, talking to kind of everyone. I don't know if Sophie was that good at, like, making, like, everyone feel like they were welcome in her crew. But it's 6 people. One person has to be voted out. Like, the math has to math, you know? Like, Sophie's not with everyone. So if I'm Nicole or Annie, I'm kind of like recognizing, or I like to think I'd recognize, like, hey, we're not in with the crew, really. Who out of the 4 is at the bottom of the 4? Like, maybe let's talk to that person and see if we can, like, form something with them. You know what I mean? So I just wish that, like, they would have maybe started to see things a little more clearly. Now, obviously, they didn't have a lot of time. Like, it's only been like a couple of days at this point, right? So yeah, maybe they just ran out of time. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's a shame when, you know, it seems like somebody's, like, not fighting as hard as they could. But I go back to my original statement that, like, we also don't see everything. So
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess let's just jump into, like, the tribal portion, because I feel like it kind of all goes together. I thought the conversation at tribal was interesting, how they just so openly said, like, there's 2 plans going on. Each person knows a plan, and we know who the person going is, but they don't know. Like, they were so open about them having a plan and, like, them all being in on it, kind of. What if you were there, Gabe, and you heard, like, someone saying that and you were on the bottom, how would you feel about that?
I would think,
I guess you
like,
wouldn't know you're on the outside, but
yeah,
if you
well,
heard them say
well, I would be thinking, like, okay, if there's, you know, 2 people that are on the chopping block here, and one of them is being lied to, and the other person's a decoy, I would be thinking, if I'm the decoy, that means I'm the other person on the bottom, because, like, there's very few people who are okay with being a decoy, and I was one of those people. And I think that was, like, a flaw in my game, is I would always tell people, like, when they were like, well, who, you know, if we're voting out whoever, and they're like, well, who are we going to tell them we're voting out? I would always be like, I don't care. Tell them it's me. Who cares? Like, I know I'm not going home, so just tell them it's me. And, like, so for me, I think early on that was good, because it didn't, like, wig me out when I would hear people saying my name. But later on, I think it was a bad thing, because people got very comfortable saying my name. And it was like, well, who do we vote out? We've been pretending to vote out Gabe for, like, a week now. What if we just actually did it, you know? So, but generally speaking, people don't like to be a decoy. And I think most people who go in playing Survivor are aware of that. And so if you are somebody who's being chosen as a decoy, and I think that was another thing too, that I always volunteered to be the decoy, right? Which is something not a lot of people do. But if you're chosen to be the decoy, then all of a sudden it's like, well, you're kind of okay with somebody writing my name down, even if it's the person that's going home. And that was the impetus for Genevieve in 47 to turn on Keyshawn, if you remember that vote out, because Keyshawn wanted to vote out Rome and came up with a fake plan to vote out Genevieve. But Genevieve was like, you know, well, what the hell is that? Like, I didn't give you permission to do that. And you're going around throwing my name out there. It means that you're okay with my name being out there, whether you think I'm going home or not. And as a savvy Survivor player that Genevieve is, I don't want my name out there at all. So to go and say, like, this is the person we're voting out, instead of the person saying, you can say it's me, saying, we're going to say it's you, that shows just, like, a lack of respect for their game, and kind of this assumption that they're okay being tossed out as bait. And so if I was the person that was the decoy, and I assume Annie knew she was the decoy, I'd be like, I'm on the bottom. Clearly I'm on the bottom. And just by the grace of God, there's somebody here that's more on the bottom than I am. So if I was in Annie's position, I would be slamming the panic button. I would be like, I need to do something. I need to figure something out. Alex seems to be somebody that reached out to her and was like, of everybody, I wanted to work with you. And we'll see how legit that is. Light-skinned dude working with an older blonde lady, kind of jocking my style there, but I digress. What do they say? Imitation is the kindest form of flattery, so yeah, I'll take it as a compliment. But if I was Annie, I'd be going back to camp, and I'd be going up to Alex, and I'd be like, hey, like, you and me need to lock this down, because what happened at Tribal cannot happen again. Like, I cannot be the decoy, because if we go back to Tribal, clearly people were okay telling somebody that I was going to go home. And clearly they chose me because I'm a believable person to go home, right? Like maybe if they were like, Jake's going to be the decoy, they wouldn't be able to sell that because Jake's the biggest, strongest guy on the tribe right now. So something about me being Annie was believable to sell as a viable person to vote out. So if we have to go back again, you clearly all have reasons in your head of why it makes sense to vote me out. So like I would be scrambling the second we get back from camp. I'd be going right up to Alex. I'd be saying like, look, who are we voting out next? Because it can't be me. I don't care if we go to tribal again. I need somebody to be named and locked down right now between you, me, and one other person, because clearly I'm on the bottom. You have all made that very clear. Like that would be my attitude if I was Annie and I survived that tribal.
Yeah. And I would be like, Jake had no problem saying my name as a decoy. Who's to say he wouldn't do the same to you? So that's a reason that
great shout. Yeah.
we should
really great shout.
You know. So unfortunately, Nicole gets voted out at this tribal council, and Annie was the decoy. Any final thoughts or comments on the premiere? I feel like this was so much happened, and I feel like there's so much we still didn't even talk about, but we still have a little more in this.
Sure.
Any final thoughts
Please.
on that?
You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but because where I was at, it was kind of loud at certain points, so there could have been more talk about this than what I think. But one thing I kind of like, because I'm very, I don't want to say anti-challenge. I'm sorry, anti-advantage. I'm very like, I'd rather see less advantages, or even no advantages and just idols. Like maybe go back to like real old school. I don't think we're ever gonna get that. But one thing that was kind of refreshing is that there wasn't really a lot of talk about advantages or even idols, really. I mean, am I wrong about that? Or
there was like a moment where Annie was alone and they were like, and she was like kind of looking, I guess, but like they were like, oh, no one should ever go alone. Like that's raising red flags. But like that was like the extent of any of that. Mm-hmm. So I agree. I like that wasn't a focus really in this episode.
Yeah. And I wonder, like one thing I was thinking is I'm like, you know, the fans voted for 50 on like certain things, obviously, hands of the fans, whatever. Mm-hmm. And one thing that the fans voted on is whether or not they wanted like a lot of advantages or medium advantages or no advantages. And I wonder if they're like kind of backing away from so many advantages to prepare us for fewer advantages in 50, which is what I'm hoping for. So I would be here for that.
That's a really interesting perspective. I didn't even think about that because I think they knew what the results were of the 50 fan voting before 49 filmed. So they would have had all that in mind. No, that point like takes exactly what I was going to say right out of my head. Because like I was somebody who greatly benefited from an episode 1 idol hunt. I got like 4.5 minutes of confessional time plus all the screen time. Like episode 1 on Tuku was the Gabe show, and that was awesome, but it was like 20% because I made an alliance with Sue in the first hour of the first day, and 80% because I found a Beware advantage and I was hunting down an idol. So like as somebody who really, really benefited from an advantage in idol hunt in the first episode, it was very refreshing to not have one this time. And we got so much camp life and we got so much like strategy and social connections being made. And I think that's something people have been calling for, especially in the new era, because every single first episode of the new era, every single season, somebody, if not multiple people on at least 1 to 2 tribes finds a Beware advantage, and then 75% of the episode and 75% of the confessionals are them trying to solve this Beware advantage to get their vote back or not get their vote back. And it's just like kind of the same old thing every single time. And I also don't think it's why we watch the show. I don't think people watch the show because we want to see these crazy scavenger hunts. We watch the show because we want to see social connections evolve into strategy-based gameplay. And then you drop in these little idols and advantages, in my opinion, which should be sparingly, to throw wrenches into the plans that people develop from these social connections. But like the grab of the show is not to watch somebody go on a scavenger hunt. Like that should be something that kind of happens in the background. And then the reward of that should be, you know, hopefully if everything goes well, it's this big moment. But I think we got what people want to see out of premieres when it comes to the balance of like advantage talk and scavenger hunts versus social connections. And this first episode should be all about social connections. It should be all about learning who these people are, figuring out how they're making and how they're receiving first impressions from the other people that they're playing with. And the one team that goes to tribal, we get to see how those first impressions manifest themselves in, you know, a vote out, and a very dramatic one because it's the first one. So I agree with you wholeheartedly that it was something that I think people have been waiting to see for a while, and it was very refreshing to see production and the editing team actually act on that for once. So I thought that was the best thing that come out of this premiere, was we didn't get a beware advantage. By far the best thing.
Yeah,
agreed.
And everyone had their vote for the first time.
Had their vote. Finally, everyone had their vote for once. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We're gonna go to commercial. Send in any questions if you're watching. Send questions in. We will get into them in social hour after this break.
Hey, you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. No, not them. I'm talking straight to you. Are you interested in even more Survivor content? Make sure to check out Survivor Now's Patreon page. We've got some incredible stuff going on over there, like an exclusive interview with the Dragon Slayer, Coach. Can you believe it? As well as many seasons that we revisit, so much bonus content, and there's 2 tiers to choose from. Either be a faithful member for $3 a month, or be a legend for $5 a month. There's also a 1-week free trial for the Legend tier if you're interested. So what are you waiting for? Go to the link in the description below and join our Patreon today. I better see you there. All right, let's go back to the show.
Okay, it is time for social hour. We'll get into any questions. So let's see what questions. We have one from Ollie. Which alternate, Jason, MC, Sage, or Sophie, do you think has the best chance of going far based off the premiere? What do you think, Gabe?
I think that, and this is Sophie on the yellow tribe, right? Not Sophie on the blue tribe?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think MC, has a pretty good position right now. I think that, you know, they had her do that last part of the marooning challenge. So I assume there was some conversation where she was like, I'm going to be good at this. Like, I think that she has a good chance of doing good at challenges. So if she can make it to the merge, I won't be surprised if she wins an individual immunity or 2. And I look at Sage. Now, this is very biased. I'll just own that. But I want to see Sage do well. So I'll say that MC is my objective pick of who I think out of all the alternates has the best chance to go and actually make a run. Sage is the alternate I'm rooting for the most. Sage is so much fun and so cool, and is our kind of collective person on 47 that we're all rooting for to do well as our alternate. So really hoping Sage can make a run at this, but MC is the one who I think probably has the best chance out of all of them, just based off one episode, which, let's be honest, doesn't mean much.
What do you think, Tori?
Yeah, I think that analysis is really good. I was kind of leaning more towards MC, just based on, I mean, she seems really level-headed, really strong, just kind of like can build connections, but won't like stir the pot too much where people are like looking at her too early. I think that's all really good. However, I have Sage on my fantasy team, so I'm going to be rooting for Sage to make it as far as she possibly can. So, and I could see her doing well. I mean, I feel like I need to see more of her gameplay and her style to know exactly like what we're gonna get from Sage. But yeah, I can see her doing well. I could see any of them doing pretty well, though. Honestly, I don't think any of them are gonna be in trouble anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was a fan of Jason too. I thought that he had a fun premiere. I don't think he got a whole lot of screen time. But I think he's somebody who, like, off the bat, we saw him talking about he's a pro Smash Bros player. I love Smash Bros, so I also have a soft spot for that. But I thought it was cool that he was just like very open with who he is and what he does. And I think people go in like so prepared to be cagey and like, I'm not going to tell people what my job is, and I'm going to lie about this and I'm going to lie about that, that I think, honesty can almost comfort people in a way where it's like, oh, he just straight up came out and said like what he does. And he seems like a very open, honest, kind of heart on his sleeve type of person. And I think that's a well-positioned place to go deep in the game. Again, it's predictable. Like people feel safe that you're not going to do or be somebody that they don't see coming. So I think Jason early on has set himself up to at least do well in this pre-merge part of the game. We'll see how it progresses.
What if he's lying and he's actually a lawyer?
Could you imagine? Could you imagine? That would have been awesome. That would have been so good.
I agree. I liked Sophie.
Do you have any lawyers this season?
Oh,
that is a good question.
That might be lying about their job.
Actually, so I met Jason at a party. It's funny that you say this. Jason is a law clerk. I didn't even think about that when you said it. He is a lawyer. Yeah, he clerks for a judge.
So he is like, oh my god.
That completely slipped my mind when you said that. Yeah, no, he is a lawyer. Yeah.
No, I just find it so funny. I'll never understand why lawyers, like obviously like people have the perception that lawyers are good talkers, and we just saw Kyle win 48. So obviously like there's something to that. But I'm not scared of lawyers. Like it's not gonna like intimidate me and make me not want to bring you to the end. Like I feel like anybody can be a good talker. Like you don't have to be a lawyer to argue
like,
your point.
have many lawyers won Survivor? Like how many lawyers have actually gone on to win? Like
I think Wendell and Kyle. I think that might be it.
Was Wendell a lawyer?
I think he at least went to law school. I don't know if he was he was like I think he became like a furniture designer.
Yeah.
So anyway, but he went to law school. I don't know that there were any others though. It's just funny.
Yeah, there's really not a lot at all.
No.
Yeah.
And it's become such like a red flag that I think it almost is like coming full circle where I would like want to keep a lawyer around because people are going to want him out. So I'd rather keep them like deep into the game so that I can use them as a get later.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody was straight up and they're like, yeah, I'm a lawyer, I'd be like, oh, cool. And probably change the subject. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not like, oh shoot, we better keep our distance from this person. But I don't know. I always find that entertaining.
Agreed.
Yeah. There's a lot of people this season that have already said that they are lying about their job. So it's interesting how a lot of people go in wanting to hide what they actually do.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we have from Gemini, Gabe, have you talked to Sage since your season?
Yeah, I have actually. So she reached out to me and like most of the 47 cast after we got back and was like, hey, I was the alternate. When you're in pregame, as you know, you can't talk to each other and you go by your initial, they call you by your initials. So like I was Geo and Sage was SA. And so she reached out to a bunch of us and was like, hey, I was SA. Like, it was so cool getting to do that with you guys, blah, blah, blah. And then when we found out that she was going to be on 49, like a bunch of us individually all reached out to her. So I reached out to us like, hey, congratulations. It's so cool. Like, we're all going to be rooting for you, blah, blah, blah. And like, we've had some really good back and forth. I haven't talked to her since the premiere. So I've talked to her since she filmed and got home. I haven't talked to her since last night. So it's a good reminder. I do want to reach out to her. But yeah, I wouldn't say that we're like friends or anything like that, but we have like a line of communication and I think she's great. And every time we talk, it's always a good time. So I need to reach out to her now. And I know that she is like trying to do like a not heavy on social media approach, which is never a bad idea. So I'll probably give her a few days to kind of decompress. The premiere is like a lot. Like it's a lot, you know, so many people are talking about you, both positive and negative. Like, you know, all your friends and family that you've ever known throughout your entire life are reaching out to you. So my DM will probably get buried deep in whatever she's dealing with. But yeah, no, Sage is great. And we have talked and I think she's awesome.
We have a question from Quinn. What would you change about how Alex approached Annie?
So I don't know if I would like change anything about it. I think that, you know, he kind of came up and was like, hey, like, I've been looking for somebody who, and she was like, don't say a mom. And he was like,
Wow.
no, like my boss, who is an old lady and like is a grandmother to me. So not only he didn't say mom, he like took it a generation further and was like, I want someone who's like my grandma. And like I didn't say that at all to Sue. What I said to Sue, and this is what I would have suggested Alex say to Annie, is like, I want somebody who's mature. Like that's a better way than saying you're old. It's like you're mature. Like you're smart and you're not this like teenager that's running around doing this. Like you're a mature woman, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, and that's exactly how I approach Sue. And I was like, look, like people are going to be running around like chickens with their heads cut off. And when that happens, I need somebody who is mature, who isn't going to fall into the social games that all of these people who are fresh off being teenagers are going to be doing.
Yeah.
Like, I want someone who is above all of that. And that's kind of how I think you pitch an alliance to an older person, because no one wants to be like, oh, so I'm just your mom. Like I'm your Denise. Like, now you could say like I'm your Sue. Like nobody likes feeling like that. That like, okay, you're choosing me not because of who I am, you're choosing me because of what I am, which is an old person. And like I don't want to be perceived as that. That's not who I'm trying to be out here. And so like don't call me that. You know, don't call me your mom, don't call me your grandmom. But being like, I want you because of who I see you are, which is a very mature, a very level-headed person who's not going to fall into the clickiness and all the social traps that come with playing a game like Survivor. That's how I would have pitched it if I was Alex. So it seemed like Annie was kind of standoffish a little bit because of how he came and presented this alliance to her. But I think it's going to work out for Alex because it doesn't seem like she's got anywhere else to go in that tribe. So it's like, you know, I don't know if it's really going to make much of a difference to how it's going to work out, but yeah, he could have handled it a bit more gracefully than I think he did.
And I feel like when like someone older is going out there, they already have it in their mind that everyone's going to see me as the older person. So I feel like it probably would make an older person feel better if someone comes up and that's not the reason they want to work with them. And you do approach it how you said, versus just because they're an older person. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, because it's like, you know, it's like no one likes to be typecast into, and then it's like, oh, do I have to like be like your mom out here now? Like, are you expecting me to like take care of you or like, you know, because maybe Annie is like I haven't met her, but from what I see online and everything, she's like the lead singer of like a rock and roll band. And like, she does not seem like somebody who goes out to Survivor to be like, are you doing okay? Like, you want to talk about it? Like, oh, it's all like, I think she wants to go out there and be like a hardcore badass, just like Sue was, you know?
Yeah.
So like, you know, feed into that. And I don't say this in a negative way, but there's like ego involved in that. Like, feed that ego. Don't water it down and be like, well, you're going to be grandma this season. So it's like, no, be like, hey, I want to work with a badass lady who's not going to fall in to what all these young 20 somethings are doing. Like, let's run this together. Like, I need someone who's badass with their head screwed on straight, who's lived life and knows what to expect when it comes to dealing with all these young people who don't know what's going on. Like, there's a way that you can sell that without saying it. And Alex kind of came out and was like, I want someone who's like my old boss. Like, you know, no one wants to hear that. So to answer Quinn's question, that's how I would have approached it differently.
I think also,
and just like any younger person. Go ahead, Tori.
No, you're fine. I was gonna say, like, I think another like thing that Alex or like someone in that position could do is maybe say like, I'm looking to work with somebody that like people wouldn't expect us to like have anything in common. So therefore like sniff it out. So that might be another approach, I guess. And the other thing, like to your point, like I feel like even like not even just like thinking about like the older people on the season, but I feel like nobody wants to like hear what their stereotype is, like how other people are seeing them. Like I wouldn't want somebody to come up to me and be like, not that this is me, but like this is just another example. Like you're like that analytical nerd. Like I'm sure the person like Caroline might have been like that kind of archetype on your season. I don't really want to hear that. I'm just like, no, I'm out here to play Survivor. Like, work with me because we vibe, not because you're like, oh, that's that type of person.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. Like everyone's going out there and wants to be accepted for who they are and not for some preconceived thing. And it's the same for, you know, and then for anyone at any age. And I feel like just showing immediately, oh, you're thinking about this about that person isn't really going to go over that well.
Yeah,
But they also want to be accepted for who they are, not because of their age,
exactly.
you know.
And like maybe you do want to work with somebody just because like they're an old lady, or maybe you do want to work with somebody just because like, you know, they're kind of nerdy and socially awkward or whatever it is. Not that Caroline or those things, but just, you know, I want to clarify because their name got brought up. But like you have to be cognizant of the potential insecurities that the person you're approaching might have. Like that's a big part of Survivor, is be cognizant of what people are egotistical about and what people are insecure about, and being able to play those two things off each other to manipulate people into doing what you want them to do. And that's something that like kind of comes with time, and you have to learn what those things are about people. And we don't know how early that conversation between Annie and Alex happened. That could have been the first conversation apart from the group that either of them had. It came a bit later in the episode, if I'm remembering right. So like the timing of all of that is also very important. Like if Alex got to know Annie and then said that, I would be like, come on, man. Like you have to know that she wasn't going to be into that. But if he was like, hey, this is my first, you know, time I've really got to sit down and talk with this lady, like I'm just going to take a shot in the dark here, and it didn't really land great, I have a little bit more grace for that. But I think it kind of lends itself to a more interesting conversation of what I said, like finding out what people have a big head about, finding out what people are very insecure about, and pushing those buttons in the right way to get them to do what you want them to do. Like that is pretty much 80% of what Survivor is all about. So I'm curious to see if Alex can use his Capitol Hill experience to grow in that part of the game. We shall see.
Let's get into the social butterfly. Okay, so social butterfly is who we thought did the best socially in this episode. So I don't know if anyone has anyone ready. If not,
I'll go first.
You want to go? Okay.
This is just like the first person that comes to mind. I don't want to think too hard about it.
Mhm.
I was going to say Sophie on Blue. I think that and you could say like, you know, maybe there's a few people that were maybe kind of doing this too, but we saw her kind of like going up to everybody and trying to play really with everybody. She wasn't just like, okay, I'm locked in with these 4 people, like I'm good. Like she was trying to really like have conversations, and you could tell like she's probably the least likely person on that tribe to get voted out. So I think that speaks to how she's doing socially. And obviously there's other things that she's got going too. You know, she seems like physical enough to hold her own in challenges and different things like that. But I think socially, she's going to be a person for us to have our eye on.
Yeah, I think Sophie is the right answer. That's who I would also say. But to pick somebody else, I would go with Steven. I think Steven was having a lot of really good conversations out there. And we talked a lot about, you know, kind of some of the anxieties that he had. But I don't think that there's a lot of, at least from what we saw, a lot of merit to those anxieties. Like, I don't think what he's scared is happening is actually happening. And I think he's actually forming some really good relationships with people. I think that he's somebody that everybody's interested in working with right now, which is like where you want to be in those first couple rounds. Like you want to be the person that everybody's thinking like, I could work with him, you know, and maybe not everyone's like, I want him to be my number one, but everyone's kind of like, oh, like I wouldn't want to see Steven leave. Like that's kind of where you want to be. And I think that's where Steven finds himself on that Hina tribe. So I'm rooting for Steven so far. He had a good first episode that left me wanting more at the end of it. So I'll pick Steven as my social butterfly.
I had a list of 3 people, and 2 of them were the 2 you said, Sophie and Steven. So I'm just going to go with the third. So to talk about someone else. And my person was Alex. I thought he did pretty well socially. He's like in all these different alliances. He had his little thing that he was talking with Annie, you know, whether it works or not, it's still a social connection that he made in this episode. So I am excited to see where he goes from here. But I think overall he did well socially, being in all those different alliances and being in the majority for this vote and everything. And automatically having an alliance with Jake before he even got to the beach. You know, Alex was off doing the other thing and Jake was like, I love him. That's my bromance.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm going with
Great
Alex.
show.
Alex crossed my mind as well. So yeah, shout out to Alex.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Tori. Thank you, Gabe. Where can we find you, Gabe?
So at Gabe Ortis on all of my socials, Instagram, Twitter, all those places. You can find me there. Posting a ton of stuff now that the season is back. I cannot wait. I love being an alumni. It's so much more fun than being on the show. Being on the show is great, but it's a lot. This is just fun. Now I just get to have fun with it. So every Tuesday or Wednesday, it's always one of the two nights. I do my own show, Gabe's Big Move, over on the Reality After Show YouTube channel. And it's a great time. It's not so much like recap stuff. It's more like big philosophical questions about Survivor. Like, what does it mean to be a villain? Or how has being a social threat evolved through the years of Survivor? So if you kind of get your fill of like recap and preview of episodes, but you still want some Survivor content, come check out Gabe's Big Move. Got a bunch of episodes archived right now over on the Reality After Show YouTube channel. And we'll be back next week as well. So go check me out over there. And if you just want to see all the other stuff that I'm up to, whether it's with NPR, where I'm a host right now here in Baltimore, you can go ahead and follow me at Gabe Ortis, like you see right there on the bottom of my screen.
Tori, where could the people find you?
Well, feel free to follow me at This Is Toe on Instagram. I'm just living my life, and I love posting about Survivor stuff. I'll post about the podcast here and there and some different thoughts like that. And so, yeah, come hang out.
Awesome. And just a reminder, we have Stock Watch on Fridays at 1 p.m. and we have Got Something For You on Saturdays at 3. And of course, we always have the pre-show where you can see Tori, and we have the after show right after the episode. So please remember to like and subscribe to Survivor Now on YouTube, Spotify, follow us, Instagram, X, wherever. And we'll see you next week. And remember to stay social.
Yay, that was fun.